Hey everyone, Lewis, aka Spider-Man 991 here with a requested video. This video was requested by Spriteman, who wanted me to do a top 5 DC or Marvel character list, and I decided to just do both because I like both DC and Marvel, so I figured why not just do both. So you're seeing the DC list first. The Marvel video should be out next week. Anyways, let's get started. So at number 5 we have The Flash, and as to which Flash, I am going to say that I like both Wally West and Barry Allen. It's tied. To be honest, it's tied because, for one reason, when I started getting into comic books, Wally was still the Flash at the time, and a lot of Barry's adventures were all in the Silver Age, and they weren't really published, and this was before digital comics. So eventually, though, when Barry did come back due to Flash Rebirth, a lot of his adventures were starting to get reprinted, so I did get to know more about Barry, but I like them both equally for different reasons. For Wally, he was the only sidekick that I knew in comics that actually succeeded his mentor, that actually fulfilled the purpose of the sidekick, which was to eventually take over for the main hero when the main hero decided to retire or died. In this case, Barry died. Now, I thought that was pretty cool, and also, Wally, he had a very cool everyman quality to him. Like, for example, after his secret identity was erased, after his public identity was erased from everyone's mind, he has secret identity again. He did work for the Keystone Police, but he worked as a mechanic instead of in the crime lab like Barry. And also, in Jeff Johns' run in particular, I remember he was talking about how he came from Blue Valley, a small town, and how he kind of prefers Keystone over Central City because it's much more hands-on. Keystone is basically a manufacturing community. It's much more hands-on, and that's really where Wally identifies. So Wally had a really cool everyman quality to him. Barry I like a lot because, well, the one thing that stood out for me prior to his resurrection was, well, his death. I mean, Barry was the hero who sacrificed himself to save the entire multiverse during Crisis on Infinite Earths. And also, he probably stayed dead, the only comic book character that stayed dead the longest. I mean, yeah, death is a revolving door. Death and resurrections, they happen way too quickly nowadays. But Barry stayed dead probably for the longest time, so that's pretty notable. I also like Barry's day job, how he was a CSI officer for the Central City PD. I thought that was really cool how he could help people and make a difference both in and out of costume. And also, since his resurrection, Barry has returned more to the DC spotlight, and he does have his own TV show now, The Flash, on the CW, which I love a lot. It's my favorite TV show on right now, so that's really awesome. And plus, you'd think that a character like The Flash, whose only power is just to run really fast, would be pretty boring. It's not. He doesn't just run fast. He can go through solid objects, go back in time if he tries really hard enough. I mean, and also I will say this: The Flash has probably one of the most variety of villains, the most colorful villains that I can think of, and he's really impressive. And that's why Flash is on my list, and why I like both Barry and Wally equally. Okay, number 4 on my list is Superboy, Connell/Connor Kent. The reason why I like him is because when I started into comics, I was a teenager at the time, and I really liked Superboy's character currently being published because, I think when I started to get into DC, it was like maybe a few years after Infinite Crisis, which was when the character died. But I really liked his story in Teen Titans, when he was a part of the Teen Titans, because the very night after he joins the Teen Titans, he and Robin find out that, okay, first of all, let me clarify, Superboy is a half-human, half-Kryptonian clone. He had Kryptonian DNA from Superman, and his human DNA came from Lex Luthor. And immediately, when Superboy and Robin find this out, of course, Robin runs his own tests to make sure that this information is true, and it turns out it is. Superboy kind of goes through an identity crisis because prior to this, he was so sure of himself that he was going to be the next Superman if Superman ever decided to retire. And unfortunately now it doesn't seem the case. Now he's worried, like, you know, if I had the potential to be the next Superman, do I have the potential to be the next? next Lex Luthor. And he just went through a little bit of an identity crisis. Well, I wouldn't call it an identity crisis, more like an identity problem. I mean, he started to question like whether or not he would be Superman or Lex, and that really and this whole conflict really did play a lot with the character, and it gave him a lot more depth, because prior to Teen Titans, Superboy was, well, he wasn't a terrible character, but he did have a really cool, interesting power set, because originally, instead of having Kryptonian powers, he had only one power, which was tactile telekinesis, that allowed him to fly, run at super speed, and get super strength. And also, he could disable machines with his mind too. So, but he was very arrogant, too sure of himself. This time, the character had a lot more depth, and when I was reading it as a teenager, I could relate to that, because I was in high school, I wasn't sure what to do with my life, and I felt like I was in the same boat as the Teen of Steel. Eventually, though, there was a story arc when they briefly resurrected Adventure Comics, and they, after Superboy came back, where he decides to stay in Smallville, and he goes, and he pretty much has another run-in with Lex Luthor. But as he's living in Smallville, shortly after his resurrection, he has a notebook where he's kind of like checking things off of things that Superman did, things that Lex Luthor did, and which one he's following. But ultimately, he realizes, doesn't matter whose DNA I have, I just need to be my own person. I just need to figure this out for myself. And he destroys his notebook and pretty much just focuses on who Superboy, who Connor Kent is, rather than how his dad's DNA is going to affect him. But yeah, Superboy had a really cool arc with Teen Titans, and also his own in Adventure Comics, and his own solo series, which is written by Jeff Lemire, which I included on my video, 5 comics every fan should read, if you want to check that out. But really, Superboy was, in a way, a more relatable character for me at the time, and I still like this character to this day. I thought he was pretty cool once he had a bit more maturity, and also I was a fan of his costume too, which was very simple. It was just the red Superman logo on a black t-shirt with jeans. I thought that was pretty simple, and it worked. So for all those reasons, that's why Superboy is on my number 4 spot. On to number 3, Nightwing, Dick Grayson. Now, whenever I bring up Dick Grayson to people who don't really read a lot of comics but know some things about the Batman mythos, they always say, "Oh, the first Robin, really?" And I say that's not really the case, because while Dick didn't have the most interesting career as Robin, I think his overall character worked better as Nightwing, because Dick Grayson, he's the original teen sidekick, the most iconic, and people thought that eventually he was probably going to replace Batman and succeed Bruce Wayne if he ever retired or died, and that was the case for some times, but ultimately Dick decided to become his own man. Eventually, when he formed a new group of Teen Titans, his relationship with Batman did get strained at the time, because he was spending his time. So he was pretty much separating his time, choosing between Gotham and helping leading the Titans in New York. And eventually, he just decided, okay, I have to give up being Robin, because Robin's always going to be a Batman side. So I'm done being Robin, and I'm just going to figure out my own identity. That's an abridged version of the story. But yeah, he did. And eventually, Dick very much blossomed into his own character on Teen Titans, proved himself as a leader, and eventually, after an event known as Nightfall, where he pretty much did replace Batman for a short time, he got his own solo title as Nightwing, working in Gotham's sister city, Bloodhaven. And he was able to prove himself on his own, which was really great. And I think at some point, and everyone feels that they have to figure out what they need to do for their own thing, grow up to become their own person. And I think that moment always relates, for me, it always makes me think of Dick Grayson when he decided to give up being Robin and stand on it and go his own way as Nightwing. I mean, yeah, it's the most interesting thing. And plus, he's definitely a contrast to Batman, whereas Batman is always brooding, serious, always willing to toss a guy out of a window to get answers. Dick, he'll sometimes have fun. He'll take down bad guys, crack jokes, which makes him very different. And, a lot more people, I think, now are starting to become more aware of Dick's history as Nightwing. And And I think the differences between him and Batman are really highlighted in an episode of Young Justice, the first season, when the group's going through group counseling after that whole debacle where they went through the Justice League's version of the Kobayashi Maru, where there was an unwinnable situation. And we have Dick Grayson, who's still Robin at the time. He talks to Black Canary and states that, you know, when he was leading on his own, he thought he would be like Batman, but he wasn't. And he doesn't have that drive that Batman has. And he starts to think that, you know, he doesn't want to give up being crime fighting, but there is no way he can be Batman. I mean, that was like one of my favorite scenes in Young Justice. And for all the reasons I've just said, Dick Grayson, he is the most notable sidekick, but I think he's also one of the greatest, but I think on his own, he's also one of the best heroes the DC Universe has to offer. Okay, my number 2 choice, and this is going to sound a little weird given how I just explained why I love Nightwing, because he's so different from his mentor, but number 2, it's Batman. I cannot deny it. Batman is awesome. I mean, he's one of the best characters. I mean, he's one of the most beloved characters in comic books. I mean, you ask anyone who your favorite superhero is, and most people will say Batman, Batman, Batman. Yeah, and let's face it. And also, Ben Affleck was one of the only good things in Batman v Superman. But Batman, number 2. Why? Well, world's greatest detective, lots of gadgets. He's a brilliant strategist. If you don't believe me, read the JLA story, Tower of Babel. Trust me, that is an amazing story. So yeah, there are lots of reasons why people love Batman. Back to the world's greatest detective. He kind of is the DC's own Sherlock Holmes. I'm not going to say he's the modern Sherlock Holmes, because let's face it, we already have a modern Sherlock with Benedict Cumberbatch. But he's really close. But he's really close as to the DCU is going to get to a Sherlock Holmes. Batman also has I would say that Batman has a very indomitable will as well. He's always driven. He knows what his mission is, and he will do anything to accomplish that mission. Even anything from helping the Justice League save the world to just keeping Gotham's criminals off the streets in Gotham. He is extremely driven. And and also one of my favorite moments of Batman that makes you go, damn, this guy's awesome, is probably in the opening story arc Grant Morrison did for Justice League, JLA, sorry. He wrote for JLA where a team of extraterrestrial aliens who pose as a new superhero team attack the Earth. The Justice League stops them. Everyone is captured except for Batman. They don't pay much attention to Batman because they think he's just a human, but guess what? He figures out their weakness and traps 5 of them in one room and takes them out. He does. And it is awesome. But yeah, there are lots of stories out there that people can tell you why Batman is awesome. You know, he's always focused, his drive, his brilliant strategies. I mean, it's really hard. I mean, for me, it's really hard to pick out a particular reason, but there are lots of them, and I think that Batman, he is really cool, especially because he's one of the founding members of the Justice League, and he does not have any superpowers. And, you know, and he's also one of the most well-respected DC heroes, because whenever he walks into a room filled with superheroes and he has something to say, everyone shuts the hell up and listens to Batman. So that's why I love Batman, why he's number 2 on my list. My number 1 pick is Superman. Why Superman over Batman? Well, the truth is, I've always looked at Batman as the hero I could be, but Superman is, in a way, the hero that I want to be, in a way. You know, he finds the good in people, or most people he meets. He always tries to find a way he always finds the right way. He tries, even if it's very difficult, Superman always tries to find the right way to solve a problem or a crisis. He doesn't want to kill. I mean, that is Superman's thing. And yes, there are stories where Superman has been left in no one's situation where he does have to kill. And he doesn't just kill and go like, okay, well, that sucks. Gonna go stop an earthquake or a meteor or whatever. No, it weighs on him. I mean, there's always some sort of consequence or punishment that he has awaiting for him. For example, whatever happened in The Man of Tomorrow, when Superman is forced to end Mr. Mxyzptlk's life, after he does that, he decides that no one should have the power of life over death, not even Superman, and he goes into a gold kryptonite chamber to permanently remove his powers. And another story, which took place in the 90s in the post-crisis universe, Superman's forced to kill an alternate version of General Zod and 2 other Kryptonian criminals. And when he does that and returns back to his own universe, it still weighs on him that ultimately leads him to decide that, you know, I should be punished in some way. So he decides to exile himself from Earth for an extended period of time. So, and also Man of Steel, you know, killing Zod, it still weighed on him. I mean, it wasn't just like he killed Zod and just immediately moved on. No, it still left with him. It still haunted him. And and you know, and Superman overall, he represents the best character of humanity, but he's also an alien from outer space. I mean, yeah, he identifies as human. He's probably the most human person, the kindest, most noble person you'll meet, and he's not even a human. He's an alien, but he represents the best that humanity has to offer, which is amazing. And he's also one of the most iconic characters the most iconic character in comic book history. I mean, the image of his first appearance in Action Comics #1, that cover has been used so many times. I mean, whenever someone says the word superhero, your mind probably immediately flashes an image of Superman in your head. There's no way around it. Superman, he's one of the most well-recognized heroes. He's got an outstanding moral character. He probably represents the best of us. And hey, I'm pretty sure there are people who, no matter what your age are, they probably still look up to him. Probably always going to try to make the right decision, even if it's something big, because, well, that's what Superman's all about. It's all about it's like having the power to do good and actually doing it. That's really what Superman's all about. And to me, that is why he is my favorite DC hero and why he's #1 on my list. So that's it for my top 5 DC heroes list. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Do you agree or disagree with anything I just said or any of my rankings? Let me know that as well. The Marvel video, the top 5 Marvel characters, will be up next week. However, do not expect a shirt change throughout the video. I do not have a lot of Marvel shirts, unfortunately. But yeah, again, thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. If you want to know what stories I recommend featuring these characters, just search on my channel. I'm pretty sure there's something out there. Pretty sure there's a lot of content on there that I can talk to you about. Thank you again for watching and subscribing. I'm Spider-Man 1991, and see you later.